Good morning, all. Welcome to today's Cancer Healing Journey Talks. Myself, Annie Jose from Community Outreach Team of Zenonco.io and Love Hills Cancer. Cancer Healing Journey Talks helps cancer survivors and caregivers to share their journey with vast number of survivors and caregivers who have traveled or been traveling through this journey. This can inspire and motivate them for their faster recovery as well. Firstly, I would like to introduce today's speaker, Kristian Bayan. She is a breast cancer survivor. So welcome to today's session, Kristian. Over to you.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me. I just want to say I really love what you guys are doing with this. I think sharing survivor stories and thriver stories is so important, especially inside of my demographic, which is the under 40 community. There's tons of survivors and thrivers out there. And when you're diagnosed under the age of 40, those stories aren't really well known. And those people who, like me, are looking for people to relate to. So I just love that you guys are getting out there and sharing people's stories. And thank you for having me.
That's great. So can you please talk about what type of cancer you had and when was it diagnosed?
Yeah, so I had a very early stage of breast cancer. It was stage 1, called invasive ductal carcinoma, which basically just means that the cancer cells in my breast, and we all have cancer cells in our body, they broke out of the duct of where they were supposed to be and invaded the surrounding area a little bit. And that happened, we found it back in January of 2021. And my diagnosis came after a doctor's appointment about 3 weeks later in February. So I was 30 at the time, and I'm 31 now, but I was diagnosed at a very young age. And it was a little bit of a shock because there's no breast cancer history in my family. I'm actually one of 2 people in my family to have cancer. Everybody else, especially the women, there's been no history of any issues in the past. So it was a unique experience. And I'm glad that I went through it. It was definitely a gift in my eyes. And I'm on the other side of it now.
All right. So how did your family took the news when you disclosed the news to them?
So my husband took the news very similar to me. We were initially shocked, of course, because again, no history of breast cancer in my family or any other health issues. But we've done a lot of work around mindset and focusing on positives and things like that. So once we got the news, I remember the breast care coordinator called me and she said, it's breast cancer and it's treatable. And after I heard it's treatable, I immediately just focused on that and just wanted to know what was next and what do I do next, instead of focusing on the drama, right? Because cancer is a heavy word and, you can get caught up in that very easily, but I chose to focus on the fact that it was treatable. And so my husband kind of mirrored that. When I told him the news, we were very much just like, okay, what do we do next? Who do we need to call? What appointments do we need to make? And we just kind of focused on that aspect and treating it. My parents, both our parents, were very surprised, of course, but also saddened, especially my parents, because I'm the youngest of 5 kids. So for their youngest child to have what is commonly thought of as like a deadly disease, it was a scary moment for them. So I could see the concern in their face when we had broken the news to them. But once we let them know where we were at with all of it, they were very supportive through the whole process. And same thing with my siblings and my husband's brother.
Great. So what kind of treatment you underwent?
I went through a double mastectomy with reconstruction and chemotherapy. And what that means is that I had both my breasts removed and we put implants in to replace those. And then I underwent chemotherapy to make sure there was no cancer in my body. And this is kind of a unique situation because the recommendation from my doctors was to actually not remove my breasts and only do what's called a lumpectomy. So their suggestion was just to remove the tumor from my body and nothing else. And I chose to remove everything I could to make sure the cancer wouldn't come back in my breast. And I haven't reduced my chances down to 0. I think we all know that's not exactly a thing when you become a cancer patient. But I wanted to do as much as I can to just benefit my overall health in the long run. And I didn't think only removing the tumor was in my best interest when the doctors said that. I really felt like removing my breast to reduce my chances of recurrence was in my benefit for my future.
All right. So did you try any alternative treatment like Ayurveda, naturopathy, any such sort of things?
I didn't do too much of that. I mostly stuck with Western medicine, but it was all based on being comfortable with what my doctors were suggesting with me. I did do some holistic healing, such as Reiki. A couple of my friends are Reiki professionals, I guess that's what you call them. And they offered to do Reiki sessions with me early on when I found out. And that was really an eye-opening experience for me to realize how much emotions were actually trapped in my body. And I'm a firm believer that our mind, body, and spirit are connected. And I think me holding on to a lot of stress and frustration over the years kind of culminated in my breast cancer. And so in addition to the Western medicine side, I did Reiki and other energy healing sessions. I think you guys even met my energy coach, Anushka Alborzian, who also did an interview with you guys. And she's great and really helped me work through a lot of energy work.
All right. So how did you manage your emotional well-being throughout the treatment process?
I really just focused on what I knew. You know, I didn't, again, cancer is a heavy word and everybody reacts to it differently. I really just wanted to focus on the good parts of it. So, you know, when they called me and said it was treatable, I focused solely on that. When, you know, they told me I was going to lose my hair to chemo, that was a really hard time for me. But in working with my health coach and working with my friends and just having positive things around me, I was really able to focus on the gift of losing my hair. And, you know, I learned throughout this process that hair holds a lot of emotions. And when I heard that, I realized, hey, maybe I'm just finally ready to let go of all these emotions that I don't need anymore, that don't actually serve me. And it became an exciting experience. So really just focusing on what I knew, but also the gift in all of it is how I handled all the emotional pieces of it.
Yeah. So about your experience with the doctors and other medical staff, how was it?
Initially, it was not that great. You know, the doctors didn't even tell me my diagnosis. It was the breast care coordinator. And that was tough because she couldn't answer any of my questions. And, you know, when someone calls you and tells you you have cancer, you immediately have 100 questions ready for that person. And so the initial interaction with her, because she couldn't answer anything, was very difficult for me. And it took a couple conversations with a couple different people at the hospital until I got to my actual doctor, till I saw someone being empathetic or sympathetic to my situation. Once I got introduced to my team and chose my doctors, my general surgeon, my plastic surgeon, my oncologist, that's when I was the most comfortable and very happy with who I chose to be a part of my team in my healing journey. And I love each and every one of my doctors and where they've gotten me in the process, because they also made it such a great experience.
Great. So did you make any lifestyle changes during or after the treatment?
I did. So one of the biggest lifestyle changes I made was changing my diet. I went 100% plant-based when I started chemo. And that's because I learned what chemo does to the body, which is really cleans out your system, as in it kills every bad and good cell, right? And your body is going to rebuild itself during that time. So I really chose, after doing a little bit of research, to go plant-based and make sure I was only putting in good, healthy things into my body. And I'm still that
Right.
way today and plan to be that way in the long run.
Right.
I also changed my work lifestyle a little bit. Before breast cancer, I was very much a workaholic. I couldn't stop thinking about work. And throughout my journey, I started to notice how unhealthy that was. And I started to incorporate things that were healthy for me, like meditating and reading more and going for walks more often. And so those are the big lifestyle changes I made. I think the biggest one I made was really that nutritional aspect of it.
Great. So I'm pretty sure that cancer has changed you in a positive way. So what are the life lessons you got from your cancer journey?
There's so many, but I think the biggest thing is that it really is a gift, and it gave me this opportunity to live life differently. Had I not gotten cancer, I'd still be a workaholic. I'd still forego seeing my family and friends at social gatherings. And since being diagnosed, I've actually connected with more people. Old friends are back in my life and we talk all the time. I have room for new friends. And I think that's the biggest gift that a diagnosis can bring you, is to just reassess how you're living life. Because I understood whatever I was doing was not working. Like, I believe our bodies are a reaction to our environment and what we're doing to ourselves. And for me to create something like cancer, that told me whatever it was, I needed to stop doing that. And so I did. And I have new friends and, again, relationships and other things I'm excited for and looking forward to now that I didn't have before.
Right. So what do you think about the various stigmas attached to cancer, especially with breast cancer?
I definitely think the conversation of cancer is ready to be transformed. It's not the death sentence it used to be. It's more like a wake-up call. And it's an important conversation to have, especially when you're diagnosed very young. And that's why I'm such an advocate for sharing my story and getting connected with other people like me, because there's so many good stories out there that you just need to hear it to know that it's possible to beat cancer. And the awareness aspect of it is really important as well. When I was looking for research or looking for stories when I got diagnosed, I had a hard time finding young women to relate to. Everybody was actually older than 50 or 60, and they weren't going through the same thing I was. And I think creating that awareness and that conversation that breast cancer, you can survive it, and it's a gift and an opportunity to relive life. I think that's such an important message to put out there.
Yeah. So one last question, that will be, if you have to sum up your journey in one sentence, what would that be?
I'm going to steal my coach's answer, and it's a total rebirth. Like, it really is such a rebirth to be a different person than I was before breast cancer. And I loved who I was before. Don't get me wrong. I accomplished a lot. I was hardworking. I love my life. And who I am today is a million times more accelerated than I ever thought I could be. And I wouldn't be this way without having been diagnosed. So it's such a rebirth, such a gift to be here. And I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
Yeah. That was really inspiring, Kristian. So thank you so much for your valuable time. And I'm sure that this session will really motivate people out there who have traveled or been traveling through this journey. So once again, thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me, and I can't wait to hear other people's stories as well.
All right. Thank you.